She's the longest serving person on Mount Pleasant Town Council. And just recently, Thomasena Stokes-Marshall announced that she will be retiring at the end of the year. I had a chance to talk exclusively with her for a special edition of Quintin's House. Speaking of recent, let's talk about Linda Page. She got elected mayor here in November 2013. And from what I can understand, she is the second woman that is, to be elected mayor behind Sherwood Flowers, of course. What was that like for you to see that happen?
Well, I definitely supported Linda. I had the opportunity to work with Sherwood Flowers when I first got elected. It was a good experience. I learned a lot from Cheryl. When the opening came and Linda decided that she was going to run for mayor, I was glad to see that she threw a hat in the ring. I had the opportunity to work with her and experience her style over a number, I think at least 3 or 4 years. So I had a good feel for who she is, how she works, her goals and aspiration, and her love for the town of Mount Pleasant. So, you know, at that time, people had asked me about running for that seat.
Yeah.
It's something that I never gave any serious thought to. I did not and do not aspire to run for higher office because I have a firm belief based on my personal experience that I can be most effective intricately involved on the local level with the people that I serve, okay? All too often I see folks who aspire and run for higher seats on the state or federal level. And as hard as you may try, in most cases, there's a disconnect from the people that you serve. And I think you tend to lose that sensitivity. I thoroughly enjoy that close contact relationship. It's almost like a drug to me, you know. It's what feeds my drive.
Yes.
And, you know, like people say, if you do something that you love doing, it's like never working a day in your life.
Right, yeah.
Okay, well, I love working with people. So to me, it's not like work. It's like, you know, hey, what I'm here to do.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's my passion.
Let's talk more about elections because you've been down that road plenty of times. You've actually had historic elections in 1998. You got reelected in 2002, 2006, and 2010. What stands out to you the most when you think of that?
I guess what stands out to me the most is that the voters are somewhat pleased and satisfied with the services that I provide.
Sure.
Otherwise, they would not continue to re-elect me. In the various campaigns over the course of the years, it's about being as honest and transparent and truthful with people as you possibly can. And I don't know any other way. And I think maybe those characteristics is something that I reflect, and people tend to gravitate to it.
Finish these sentences for me. Billy Swills not running for re-election was.
Kind of disappointing at first, because actually the reason why I agreed to run for the 4th term was because Billy had run and got me elected as mayor. And he asked me to stay on and work with him in that capacity. And my support and belief in him was that strong that I agreed to do that. Okay, so it was a thorough pleasure working with Billy.
He's a great guy.
There's never been any stress or strain. We agreed to disagree on certain things. There was never any hard or bad feelings, you know. I thoroughly enjoyed working with him.
Yeah.
I have to say, I've worked with, let's see,
Harry
Mayor
Hallman.
Woods, Mayor Holman, Mayor Swales,
Right.
and now Mayor
And
Page.
Page.
Okay, so I've worked with 4 different mayors and many different council members over the past almost 17 years. I don't think maybe one person that I can't say it's been a thorough pleasure. But on a whole, I can say that each and every council member and mayor that I've worked with, I've enjoyed. I've learned from each and every one. Have the utmost admiration and respect, and sincerely feel and believe that I have grown and become a better person because of my experience with each one.
The passing of Harry Hallman was.
Kind of gut-wrenching. To me, Harry was like a teddy bear. Okay, there were personal experiences that he and I shared in terms of losing a child, and I experienced losing my only child and my husband within a period of a month's time. And Mayor Holman was the mayor at that time, and the support that I got from him and his town, I think about it now and it makes the hair stand up on my body. Okay, they were my family. This whole town, just the people in general here, you know, the kind of support. And I don't mean just words, the things that people did for me was just mind-boggling. It was awesome, you know. Being that I did not grow up here, I grew up in New York, which is a whole different set of environments and lifestyle, and the fast pace. Much different than here, and to me that's one of the most outstanding difference, is that camaraderie, that caring with the people that you get to know and that are involved and engaged in your life and that are there when you need them the most. And yeah, that has been one of the most outstanding things that have happened here with me and the elected officials here in the town and the community residents as a whole.
Losing your mom to Alzheimer's in 1983 was.
Again, a devastating experience, but when the early signs started setting in, my mom and dad had relocated back here, and I was in New York. And slowly but surely over a period of time, I realized that the mom I knew as a child growing up into an adult was diminishing. Okay, I could see and hear that. And me being the only girl and the oldest child and the caretaker of my 2 younger brothers, and that kind of sensitivity and love, um, I wrestled with, how do I help my mom? And my husband and I made the decision at the time. We were both recently retired, and we were looking to buy a home, uh, and decided that it would be better to come back here, build a home here, which would cause me to relocate and be here for my mom. And I tell you, I came back in 93, she died in 95. So that time that I was back and able to care for her and love her and do for her was a time that I treasure and will treasure for the rest of my life, because it was a time when she needed me, and I'm grateful that I was there for her. And it also prepared me to deal with losing her, as opposed to if I had not been there to take care of her. So it was difficult, and unfortunately I lost my dad to, the same illness. And both my mom and dad were always hardworking, independent business people. And to see them decline and be robbed of their dignity and everything else that goes along with it, it's heartbreaking. And I guess I see what it does to the individual. I've seen it with my mom, my dad, and I see it with other seniors. And some people are not even seniors, and soon early as their 50s. And this is one of the disease and illnesses that's affecting such a large percentage of our population, and our country is just not prepared to deal with it. And these are people who have been productive, hard-working family people all their lives. And again, we talked about the generations that come after us. Unfortunately, many of them are not prepared to deal with it. Many of the next generation, unless they come in direct contact with it, with someone in their family or friends, they don't have a clue what all of that involves.
My grandmother dealing with the same thing as well.
Okay. So, and again, when in my younger days, I focused on the needs of our younger population. When I was with NYPD, I used to run and operate several police athletic league programs.
Sure.
And of course, after I retired and came back home and got involved with seniors from a number of different perspectives. I guess I initially started out with Meals on Wheels. And that has made me more aware of the needs for what has become our fastest growing population in the country. So I definitely have a passion for our seniors.
We were actually taping this particular interview inside the Thomasena Stokes-Marshall Senior Center. And I know that you told me on our way over to this particular interview that it's one of your greatest accomplishments as council member.
It is.
Tell me more about that.
I have to admit that the light bulb for the senior center went on as a result of me attending a conference that was held by Aging in Place, which is a nonprofit organization that focuses on the needs of our senior population. And I shared a table with a woman by the name of Maureen McGuire, who was a retired RN instructor, I believe, with MUSC. She ran her, and still runs her own business, Senior Choice. And as we sat at the table and engaged in a conversation, she inquired as to whether or not I had ever visited the James Island Senior Center. And I had not. So she told me how nice it was, and also advised me that I really needed to go and visit.
Yeah.
So I said, okay. So we exchanged contact information and followed up with each other and scheduled a date and time. And we went and did a tour of James Island Senior Center. Well, by the time the tour was over, in my mind, the seed was planted that we definitely needed a senior. I have to admit that I personally, and many of the seniors here, have brought the idea of a second senior center at a different location, which would be located more in the north area of the town. I have asked the mayor and my fellow council members, and we have engaged in a discussion with one of the largest property owners in that area and another institution about the possibility of collaborating with the developer of the town and this institution to build and establish not just another senior center, but a senior community, whereas there would be the opportunity for seniors to go from independent living through all the in-between phases to skilled nursing, which would be located there. We would also have a wellness facility there and the senior center. So everything would be basically right within that area, which, you know, then you would have like a part of it that would be commercial, where shopping and pockets, parks, and amenities, whereas all the seniors and people who live, and it's not just all seniors, because it requires a good mixture of people, would be able to create that kind of community environment. You know, I think it's when we mix as opposed to separate, we are much more productive as human beings in terms of the services that we deliver. So that's a vision that I have. If it'll ever materialize, or, you know, the bottom line is that I see that the need is there, and I'm trying to move the idea forward. You know, it may grasp some traction, and it may not. But if I don't try, I'll never know. You know, and I mean, just like, you know, nothing ventured, nothing gained. If I never tried to have this facility established, it wouldn't be here. You know, so it just goes to show sometimes you just got to put one foot in front of the other one and keep moving. You know.
And, you know, we talked about this throughout the interview, but let's talk about your time as a detective for the New York Police Department. Can you describe to me who Thomasena was as a detective?
Wow, that's all, seems like a whole another lifetime. I went into the police department, I think 28, no, 26. And how I ended up there is because when I came out of school, and I wanted a job, but I wanted a job that didn't just pay a good salary, that provided good benefits, that had a pension, and things that would better my life and the life of my family. And in New York, they have two newspapers that come out. They're called Civil Service. Are you familiar with them?
A little bit,
Called The Leader and The Chief. Comes out every week, right? And they list all of the civil service jobs, whether it's the city, the state, or on the federal level. So once I became aware of that, there was every week I had those two papers, and I'd go through and I'd see whatever jobs were available and what the requirements were. And I started applying for them. First job that I got a response to, I had applied for, was the New York State Department of Corrections. And I accepted it. I worked at that time it was called Matawan State Correctional Facility for the criminally insane. Um, and it's located in Beacon, New York, which was, for me, round trip from where I lived in the Bronx there, 120 miles. But I traveled that for like 5 years. Yeah. And I worked there. That was a eye-opening experience for me. As a child growing up, I mentioned that I'm the firstborn, the only girl. So to a great extent, I was sheltered. You know, my parents, what I was allowed to do.
Right.
So as far as, you know, the street life, I had limited exposure to that. But when I started working for the Department of Correction and the kind of people that not only was I exposed to, but I was responsible for maintaining, overseeing, and keeping them under the rules and guidelines of the correctional facilities.
Sure.
I did that for 5 years. In the meantime, because of the distance, I had also taken the exam and applied for New York City Police Department. And I got called, and I responded, passed all of the requirements, and entered the academy, and went through that, which was another eye-opening experience and a challenge, which I was determined to achieve. And after I graduated from the academy, I was assigned to, my first command was the 43rd Precinct in the Bronx. Foot Patrol, which I worked for the first 10 years that I was on the job. I worked pretty much every single precinct within the Bronx, the borough of the Bronx. Yeah. And then other precincts in other boroughs also, but most of my time on the job was in the Bronx, which was good because I lived in the Bronx.
Right.
After my 10th year, most of my time I used to spend in a precinct, in what's called the 47th precinct, which borders Yonkers and Mount Vernon and the Bronx. All right. And at that time, I mentioned earlier that I got involved with the kids through the PAL. Yeah. So in my walking the beat, I got to know the people. You know, there was no one that I wouldn't talk to or strike up a conversation with. Not only the children, the adults, but the winos, the drug dealers, and everybody else, okay? And that was a wonderful experience. I got involved with the children and their parents through the PAL, where I created what's called summer play streets under the guise of Police Athletic League. And there were 4 of them that I established, like north, south, east, and west of the precinct. And what that did, it created jobs for 60 summer youth employees and for 8 adults who served as the director and assistant directors of those play street sites. Okay, and I developed and designed program activities that were duplicated at each site across the board. And that was extremely successful. I mean, throughout the years, I know we served probably over a good 5,000–6,000 kids from that community. And my commanding officer became aware of the work that I was doing outside of the scope of my normal patrol requirements, and approached me and wanted to know, was I interested in being assigned to the precinct's community affairs department. And of course I was. Okay, so I said yes, and he submitted the necessary documents, and I got appointed as the community affairs for the 47th precinct, and within 3 years I got promoted to detective, and my last 14 years on the job I worked in that capacity under the community affairs department, which I found that was my niche. You know, one thing about any police department, there are a number of different departments or field that you can specialize in.
Sure.
And being assigned to the Community Affairs Public Relations Department, I realized that was my niche. And I became intricately involved with the community, the schools, the churches, the institutions, the business, commerce, the politicians. And that created an environment that allowed me to get to know the people that I served, and also to allow the people I serve for it to work both ways.
Sure.
And I saw that over a period of time, the kind of achievements we were able to acquire by working collectively, coming together, identifying problems and issues, and it just made so much more sense to keep that momentum going.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, when it works.
Keep going at it.
So, and I received countless numbers of awards and recognitions for my achievements in that capacity. When I retired in '91, some of the people that I had interacted with throughout the years, they threw me a surprise retirement party.
That's good.
Over 2,500 people in attendance, with the chief of police, the Bronx Borough president.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was an awesome event, and it was an event that included from the youngest people that I worked with to the oldest people that I worked with over a span of years.
Wow.
Some people I hadn't seen maybe once or twice during that whole year, but you know, they were there, and it was one of the most awesome occasion and events, you know, that I ever experienced, you know. So, you know, people have a way of giving back and letting me know that they appreciate what I do. And so that culminated my experience with the police department. One thing I enjoy my experience because no 2 days were ever the same. Okay, I mean, every day that I went to work, it was a different experience, and I was able to rise to the challenge of whatever that experience was, you know, and that gave me a sense of empowerment. You know, today I look at the status of various law enforcement departments and the declining relationship that it exists within the communities and the precincts and the police department and the officers that are serving those communities.
True.
And you know, I use the word decline because I know that when I was involved in law enforcement, there was a concerted effort to turn that around. And to a great extent it was. You know, New York City Police Department at one point, they implemented a program, it was called Neighborhood Stabilization, all right? And it was designed specifically for doing what I was doing in terms of getting out there in the community, getting to know the community,
right,
allowing the people to know me, to know what I do, what role I play. I'm here to help you. I'm not a threat, you know. And it worked very well. And I see what's happening today, and I'm saying, you know, my God, where did it go wrong? You know. So, but I thoroughly enjoyed my experience there.
Well, you have been a detective. You have been mayor pro tem. You have been a council member. What's next?
Once I come off of council, I currently serve on a number of different boards and directors, okay? And of course I will continue my services on those boards. I am the kind of person, you know, I've already had people who have come to me and asked me to consider serving on their board after I come off of council. At this point in time, I'm not making any commitment.
Okay.
I'm committed to doing the work for the boards that I'm on. You know, one thing, if I find that the amount of time and area of responsibility that's required of me as a board member, if I cannot fulfill that, then I'm not going to serve. You know, I'm aware, and based on firsthand experience, I know anytime you accept a board position, that along with that comes an area of responsibility for each and every board member. And I feel that if you cannot fulfill that, then you shouldn't accept, or even after if you accept and you feel that you find out later on that you can't, then, you know, I think that you should step down. So therefore, right now my commitment is fulfilling my obligation and responsibility to those boards that I'm on.
Sure.
I think I will become more involved in helping to identify, working with other organizations and agencies on local, state, and federal level to help address the needs of our senior population. I see that is an issue that will continue to increase, and unless there are concerted efforts that is put out in front of our decision makers on all levels to work collectively to address these issues and these needs, then it's going to go lacking, and you know, it'll be almost like an epidemic that we're trying to catch up with.
Right.
So that is one area, as long as, you know, God gives me life and keeps directing me. Right now, that's the direction that He's moving me in.
That is awesome. Well, Thomasena Stokes-Marshall, this was so great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Anytime.